Good morning, everybody. Here from the DML estate. We're trying something a little bit new, and I'm taking advantage of this great weather that we're having here in New York. And we'll wait on the audience to build a little bit. I know we're doing something a little bit different. I want to make sure that we share some of the latest news that's breaking. If you guys have been keeping track of DennisMichaelLynch.com, and I trust you have been because you're loyal supporters of ours, you've seen that there's actually been quite a bit of news over this weekend. A lot of it, international. We'll get to this later in the show, talking about the results in the French election. But also, it seems that the fake news is starting to pour on President Donald Trump in a way that it hasn't in a couple of weeks. Everything from a noted golfer claiming that Eric Trump, President Donald Trump's son, told him that he received funding from the Russians years ago, to some other fake news that we'll get to later in the show. But first, let's start with probably what is the #1 domestic issue here in the United States, and it's healthcare. Obviously, we had some surprise results over the last week, where it seemed for quite some time that healthcare reform was going to be put on the back burner at least a little while. That's despite the fact that President Donald Trump said that that he was going to continue forward with it, and a lot of people, including myself, said it's going to be really difficult for him to do it. But what he did was pretty amazing. He was able to actually get the Freedom Caucus to get in line. They were able to whip the Freedom Caucus in line and support the bill with some minor changes. And now it's at the Senate. I spent some time reading the bill. Unlike a lot of people you'll see in the media and give you their opinion, I took the time to read it. To read, I didn't read it cover to cover, but I read the key parts. Obviously, I read the summary, as anyone should. If you are interested and you don't have the time to read the full bill, or the time to read in-depth excerpt from the bill, go read the summary. You could do it in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to give you the breakdown of some of the top line concerns that I have with it. And I think that this bill's not doomed, right? Even though I'm about to lay out some problems that I have with the bill, but I don't want you to take that as criticism of, like I'm stabbing the president in the back, like I'm a turncoat. That's not why I'm saying it. I'm bringing it up because I don't want this thing to blow up in our face. And I believe that through reconciliation, there are going to be many opportunities between the House and Senate to get this bill right. But it's important that people like you and me, as soldiers of the president, stand up and say, hey, pay attention to these issues. And here's the #1 issue that really put me back on my heels. And it's that under Obamacare, which everybody knows is a monstrosity that's going to implode. All right, that's the baseline. We know that this thing's going to explode in our face if we don't do something about it. Under Obamacare, one of the more popular elements of the bill, if you look at the polling, is that, and it's not just on the Democratic side, it's on the Republican side too. One of the most popular elements of this is that people with pre-existing conditions can get coverage under the law. And so that's something that President Donald Trump ran on, saying that we're not going to take away that coverage from people with pre-existing conditions. And so I took the time to look at, well, just how many people in this country have a pre-existing condition? And over 52 million Americans under the age of 65 have a pre-existing condition. Over 52 million Americans, over 52 million of us have pre-existing conditions. I'm lucky I don't have one. But I know many people in my family and your family, they would, and you'd be surprised what qualifies as a pre-existing condition and how that would impact your premiums under this bill. Over 52 million of us under the age of 65. There are even more beyond 65, but they're covered through Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security in some respects as well. So, let's take them out of this. But over 52 million of us are impacted by this bill. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have coverage under this piece of legislation if it were to be signed into law and become an act, if it were to reach the resolute deaths and President Donald Trump were to sign it. No, but what it would mean is that your premiums could go up through the roof. Through the roof. And so I'm not making this up. I'm not the first person to say this. That's why in part of the bill, Speaker Paul Ryan and many of the GOP leaders, people that are writing the bill, they put in elements that would help subsidize the cost of people's health care. They'd make it more affordable for people that would lose their coverage under this bill for them to go out and get health care because they have a pre-existing condition that would mean that their premiums would be much, much higher tomorrow than they are today. The problem is that funding is paltry. The GOP bill this GOP bill sets aside $23 billion for subsidies for people with pre-existing conditions. I've been reading multiple reports, and probably one of the most optimistic reports on this. So I'm giving you, these are conservative numbers. One of the most optimistic reports on what this would cover is just 5% of the American people with pre-existing conditions. And so what the Republicans are doing that really scares me is that they are going to make the premiums of 52 million voting age Americans go through the roof right before the 2018 primaries, right before the 2018 midterm elections, excuse me. This is a problem, and they've got to take, I'm not saying that the strategy in the bill is wrong, but if we want to do the right thing, if we want to follow through with President Donald Trump's promise to continue to provide world-class health care for every American in this country, and that was the promise that he made to all of us, and I believe that he wants to fulfill it. If we're going to hold true to that, then you cannot strip health care, or you can't make it unaffordable for so many of us, because they'll turn on you. They'll turn on you. And so the solution to this is, it probably means that we're going to have to increase the amount of subsidies that we provide. It's either that, or we keep doing what we're doing today, which is unsustainable. Because what's happening in the current marketplace under Obamacare is that healthy people, or people without pre-existing conditions, are subsidizing the health care for those with pre-existing conditions and people that use the marketplace more often. So that's one issue. My second issue, and this is a big one. This is a big one. You know, you hear all these reports all the time about these outrageous bills that come from hospitals. These invoices that are generated by hospitals and that insurance companies have to pay. You got like a $50 aspirin pill, you know? Or, you know, an ER visit costs $4,500. Ridiculous invoices generated by big hospital corporations. What this bill does not do is address the true cost of healthcare. Insurance isn't a cost of healthcare. Insurance is what it costs you to be covered in case something horrible happens. Healthcare is the cost of administering healthcare. And we're not doing anything today to get at the cost of it. And Dennis talks about this all the time. DML talks about this all the time. You know, we need a real strategy in this country to address the exploding healthcare costs in this country, and it starts with prevention. That's one way. But it is also taking a scalpel to these exorbitant costs that come out of the big hospitals. And Obamacare is in part to blame for that. What Obamacare did, and I've talked to a lot of doctors about this, what Obamacare did vis-a-vis hospitals and doctors is that they made it so that it was so complicated and so burdensome to set up a medical practice or to have a regional hospital that it forced consolidations where you have doctors that are forming larger medical groups because they don't want a solo practice, or they don't want a small practice. And you have small hospitals that are having to join hospital systems so that they have scale. That is because they have so much paperwork to push around. So for those two reasons, I mean, those are the two, there are other issues, but for those two big reasons, I have trouble supporting a bill until we fix these. I'm not saying that, I'm not turning on anybody. I'm not turning on the president. I'm raising my hand and I'm saying, hey, let's look at this, let's fix this now. And there are a lot of other elements of the bill that a lot of different people are going to want to fix. But let's fix these now so that they don't blow up in our face. And we can do it. So stay tuned on that. We'll have some more information on this. I'm going to do a Harlan on the Hill show today at 3 o'clock, so make sure you tune in for that. The next thing I want to talk about is Ivanka Trump. Ivanka Trump is obviously, I mean, she's all the superlatives you can think of. I mean, she's highly educated. She's really smart. She's poised under pressure. She's a great mother. She's a great daughter to the president. She's an invaluable advisor to him. But what I've noticed is that the mainstream media and the left, they have selective outrage when people say something about Ivanka. And there was an example last week where Jesse Waters made a joke about Ivanka's voice, and it was blown out of proportion, and it was taken out of context by people on the left, and they made the joke sexualized, and it was clear that's not what he was talking about. I watched the clip back and I was like, what are they talking about? I'm not going to repeat the assertion that the left made, but Jesse didn't say that. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm picking the highlighter back up, by the way. So for those of you who don't like it, I need it because I'm going to highlight a couple things. So they went after Jesse. But, what is it? I think on Friday, Bill Maher had his show. He made a crass, disgusting joke about Ivanka Trump. An incest joke about Ivanka Trump. And I'm going to play the clip, but I want to warn you guys. Like it's got some strong language because Bill Maher's a crass jerk, and he's got a big mouth, and he's nasty. So, look, sometimes I like the guy, sometimes he's just nasty. This is a nasty joke. So, I'm warning you. You know, and if you've got kids in the room, it's probably inappropriate too. But let's roll the clip. All right, so the sound's not working there, but basically he makes an incest joke about Ivanka Trump performing some sexual act on the President of the United States to avert some crisis. And he was making the joke in terms of, you know, saying that Ivanka is like a really positive influence on the President. But I wanted to bring this up because it's new. Are we playing it again? Oh, because it's on screen. Oh, okay, yeah, there you go. So, you know, I made this crass joke, and it's totally excused by the left. And you turn on the TV, or you read the liberal blogs, you're not going to see them talk about this because Bill Maher gets a pass because he's a liberal, right? He does. But Jesse Waters says something that is, even if you took it out of context, even if he did mean what the left is saying, is so much less offensive than what Bill Maher says in that clip. I wish we could show it to you. It's on DennisMichaelLynch.com if you want to watch it. It's outrageous. And so I bring this up because I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the selective moral outrage. I'm tired of the witch hunts that only apply when the left is going after somebody on the right or somebody in the middle or a libertarian. Or frankly, if you're even somebody of the far, far left, they go after them too. If you're not a mainstream hardcore Democrat, which is really what everybody in the media is anyway, if you don't fit in that bubble, if you don't reflect them, if you're not the mirror image of what the mainstream media is, then they want to go after you. We saw the same thing with Stephen Colbert last week, right? Same thing. He makes a crash joke. My take on this, however, I'm not bringing this up because I think Bill Maher should be fired. I hate that stuff. I hate these witch hunts. I hate this. This is a waste of time. I bring it up because I'm trying to show the double standard that exists. I'm not asking for anybody to boycott. That's not what I'm interested in. You know, if we are tired of the PC police, if we're tired of playing this cat and mouse game with people where they say something that's taken out of context or it's misconstrued or they misspeak or what, if we play that game, then we're just as bad as the mainstream media. And so I'm not going to do it. I'm merely presenting it to provide some context and to show this righteous indignation of the left is nothing more than a convenient excuse for them to target people that they don't like. So that's that. And speaking of fake news, There's been a video that's floating around social media, and it's of a young African American girl, and we're gonna play the video, but it's also on DMLdaily.com where you can get the full article as well. So, but it's an anti-Trump fake video that's been making the rounds on social media. It had like 250,000 retweets on Twitter or something crazy like that. I mean, that's crazy. Like that kind of like engagement on Twitter is crazy, and it's been picked up by some people in the media. Turns out it was fake news, and it's of a young African American girl trying to take a picture with the president, and they dubbed over it, and it says, it makes it seem like the little girl is telling the president of the United States, President Donald Trump, "You are a disgrace." She didn't say that. It was faked. It was dubbed over. Let's play the video. And it was Comedy Central. That was who was you know, at the root of this. Obviously, they, I don't believe, intended to leak this out there and create this fake news story, but tacitly that's what happened. As that little part, the Comedy Central logo, was edited out of the original video, and this was spread across the internet, and people picked it up and they thought it was real. So I wanted to bring this up again because I hate this term fake news. I hate it. I mean, it's a convenient excuse for people on the primarily the left to write off any opinion that they don't agree with. I was in an argument this morning with a French reporter because he wrote something. I'm just going to use this as an example. He wrote something about the French election, and he said that the French people, unlike the Americans, have learned what fake news was. And he was saying that because in France, they had right before the election, the guy that won the election, Emmanuel Macron, they had like 9 gigabytes of emails leak out from his campaign, which is actually a lot. 9 gigabytes of emails is a lot. And some of it, there were some really incriminating allegations that came out of that. Some allegations that he had parked money offshore to do some tax evasion, some other things too. And what the French did that was totally outrageous, is they put a media blackout on this. This may have impacted the election, I don't know. But they said, you can't cover you can't cover these emails that were leaked because they might impact the election. Well, no kidding, they might impact the election. Yeah. So what the media did there is that they didn't have to cover it. Emmanuel Macron said, oh, this is fake news, and they just took him at his word. Well, the burden of truth on people in the media is higher than one candidate who would be hurt, who's the subject of this investigation. You can't just take him at his word. It's like you got a killer, and he said, I didn't do it, and then the authorities say, okay, I believe you. It would never happen. It's so outrageous. It's so dumb. But that's what happened, and it's actually worse than that. It'd be as if the government told the prosecutor, you're not allowed to investigate this. The media, you're not allowed to cover this investigation. That's what happened in France. And so, but this is the kind of stuff that's happening with fake news here in this country too, is that the left and the mainstream media likes to pretend as though the right has a monopoly on this fake news thing. And couldn't be any further from the truth. I mean, we could do a segment every day on this show. You get tired of it, but we could do a segment every day on this show exposing liberal fake news. And maybe we should do that just to provide a level of context that you're not getting anywhere else. No side has a monopoly on this. During the election, I saw so much liberal fake news from, Joe's liberal blue state blog.com or whatever. There's, it's the internet. There's a lot of fake stuff out there. No one side has a monopoly on it. Anyway, let's keep moving. The last story I wanted to cover is another thing that's on DMLdaily.com, and it's of an elderly woman, and it's horrific. This video is horrific. Let's roll it. Disgusting. It makes you wonder what, I mean, it almost doesn't need a comment. I mean, this is the state of America. I mean, we could do another segment on this every day about Americans doing this to other Americans, about young Americans disrespecting older Americans. This happens. There's no respect. We have no respect for one another anymore. You know, you drive down the street and people are flipping each other off, laying on the horn. Yeah, I had a story. I read a story last night. Somebody posted on Facebook, and it was a guy I know. All right. He's a Republican consultant, and he's a workout enthusiast, and he was riding a bike, and took a nasty fall on the side of the road. He was sitting there, sitting on the side of the road, bleeding by himself, bleeding. And he was trying to, get it together and start walking. And a lot of people were coming by, driving by. This guy could barely walk because he hurt so bad. And asking him, "Hey, are you all right? Do you need to go to the hospital?" And he said, "No, I'm okay, but could you drive me a mile and a half up the road to my house?" And everybody said no. And so that video of the older woman being beaten savagely by someone is merely illustrative of what's happening across this country, where we don't care about one another. We're not having real conversations anymore. This is what's happening. You have a WWE style fight. You have this woman thrown in the pool. For what? For what? With that, I thank you guys for joining me. I'll be back later today at 3 o'clock, and we're going to do a special Harlan on the Hill. We're beta testing that show. We'll be back in the studio for that. I hope you guys like this. This is a different look. We'll keep doing this. We'll keep playing with some different ideas. Dennis is traveling, and so he will be back in studio early Wednesday morning. We've got some more people joining us here at the estate, and we're growing the team, growing the studio, growing our ability to broadcast shows. You're going to see a lot more shows. You're starting to see it with Harlan on the Hill. You'll start to see, Dennis will be in here, once he's back. And we're adding new shows, and we'll have The Truth coming back again. We loved what you offered in terms of the surveys. That was really, really helpful. If you love what we're doing here, and I know I haven't asked you guys for this in a little while, so hear me out. If you love what we're doing here at DML Daily, and you want to see us bring in more talent, and we're working on that, you want to see us build more studios, set it up like this, and having a variety of shots and different, really dialing it up. If you want to see more of this, go to DennisMichaelLynch.com/donate and give whatever. I mean, $5, $10, $100, whatever you can afford. Don't give away the month's rent check. But if you can afford to give a little bit, it goes a long way, and we really appreciate it. And it helps pay for people like Tim and me and all of this. And we are scaling up. There are a lot of things happening. It may not be visible to you guys yet, but there are a lot of things happening here, and in a big way, we'll be able to start sharing that with you guys really, really soon. And I think you're already starting to see some of the fruits of our labor. And I hope you like this show, and I hope you like Harlan on the Hill later today. And I'll be back with you guys this afternoon and tomorrow. Take care.